Oh, hello and welcome everybody to Financial Wellbeing Part 1 with Liz McLardy. My name is Alison Watts and I'm here hosting from the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging and pay respect to the ancestors, elders, descendants on the lands on which we meet you today. On the lands I'm meeting you today, which is the Widjabul people of the Bundjalung Nation, and am mindful these lands always were and always will be Aboriginal land. So yes, we are recording, and I will post the recording to our YouTube channel, and I'll let you know when that's available. So thanks, Liz. Over to you.
Lovely. Thank you, Alison, and welcome again, everybody, for coming along. So yes, this is the first webinar of a three-part series, which we run twice a year for the association. So it's a wellbeing foundational series where we're going to look at providing you with some tools, sort of foundational tools that can help you with your financial situation and help you to better understand where you are and perhaps things that you might like to change. So that's the title of today's session is the first part is Where Are You Now? So I'd like to just welcome you, and as I was saying before, it is quite early on a Wednesday morning, so brilliant that you've been able to join live. And for those students who are listening back, what we might do in the future as well is change the times for which we're delivering our webinars. So we can hopefully make sure that we're engaging and providing these webinars at a time that's suitable for other students as well, because I know many of you are working full time. But great that we've got Honey here today, David and Diana. So we are recording the session today, and for you, I guess for the three of you to be mindful of that. So if you're happy to have your cameras on, please leave them on. It's wonderful to see you, but if you're not, completely understandable if you want to turn them off. We will have opportunities to talk through how some of what I'm going to sort of, I guess, teach you today will be relevant to your own personal lives. You don't need to share any personal details at all, but if there are questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to do so, but know that the session is being recorded for other students to use in the future. So wonderful to welcome you, and just incredible to be able to provide these resources to the Postgraduate Association. Even just having the list of those who enrolled for today, just the variety of backgrounds from which you're studying. So Honey was sharing, so you're doing your master's in mental health, is that correct? In the education faculty? Healthcare leadership. Pardon me. Healthcare leadership. Pardon me. Yeah. So and I've got David. Are you from business school? You've got your audio turned off.
Yeah, that's right. I'm from the business school. I'm doing an MBA.
Okay, fabulous, yep. Wonderful. Yep. Okay, good. And you're based in Perth, so right. Yeah, we're even very cool that you're here at 7:30 in the morning. And Diana, you're from. It looks like you've got a science background and you're doing your PhD. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Lovely. So just from the three of you here today, which will really be mirrored again in the students who are listening back, always have such a variety of skills and experiences for which students are tuning into these sessions. So really wonderful, because we can also draw upon those experiences, and you'll soon see how perhaps finances may be not something that you've worked in or had a lot to do with, but the skills for which you're studying and the areas and the backgrounds that you come from, all of that is going to be really, really helpful, and I'll show you how. Some students feel like they have no idea, but you'll soon see that a lot of your experiences are always really relevant. I won't do the acknowledgement of country again, but thank you, Alison, for sharing that with us this morning. So before we start, most of you haven't met me before. Maybe you've listened to some of the other webinars that are the resources on the web page. But just to give you a little bit of a brief background, so I'm Liz McLardy. I was a unit assessor lecturer at Southern Cross University for 5 years in the Faculty of Business, Law and Arts, teaching undergrads, postgrads in the field of accounting. So my background is as an accountant, as a CPA. And then during COVID, I studied a diploma of financial counselling as sort of a side business to really help with the financial literacy of both students, but also my own personal clients. So I sort of built up that side of my business, and I'm here consulting with their CPA, using both of those skills and background to help provide students with financial literacy education, tools and techniques that can help you with your own personal finances. I currently work for Swinburne Open Education, so also delivering education primarily in the field of accounting at the moment as well. So that's a bit about me. So as this is the first part of this series, I do just like to sort of check in with students to really get an idea and understanding, to see if I can sort of shape any of the future webinars as well around particular topics or things that you're keen for, I guess, to seek help with. So my big question is, if you're comfortable sharing, what would you like to get out of this webinar series? You would have seen the title. There would have been something about it that you found interesting, that motivated you to come along this morning. So it'd be lovely to hear perhaps what it is that you're hoping to get out of this series, and or even if there's a particular question that you might be working through that you're hoping that this might be able to help you with. Anyone want to share?
Hi, Liz. I can share. I'm sort of looking to sort of boost my super savings. I've always felt that I've sort of always been a little bit behind in terms of, you know, where I need to be with, for example, my super savings. I know I worked in Africa for the first 8 years of my working career, and because of hyperinflation and devaluation, you know, my pension ended up being virtually worthless. You know, so I've always sort of been behind the 8 ball, trying to catch up in various places where I worked. I've immigrated twice as well, which has been a huge drain on financial resources. So I've always felt that sort of my retirement savings are not quite where they should be, and so I'm hoping that I can get something out of this to help in that regard. Yeah,
perfect. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that's great. That's fabulous. Yeah, we can certainly speak to that in this series. That's fabulous. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, no, certainly there'll be a lot of other students who will relate to that as well. A lot of students who have moved around for study and for work, and absolutely the different currencies. I think it's 1 to 12 in South Africa at the moment. So you're really faced with some of those, and that's where everyone's financial situations are so unique. And really one of the key messages that I want to make really clear, particularly in today's session when we're looking at where are you now, is to understand that and to not be making decisions based on somebody else's situation, but to be really clear about where you are and where it is that you want to get to. So then you take individualized actions, not just actions based on perhaps the media bombards us with stuff all the time. Well, you've got to get this, or you should be in this product, or you should be investing in that. But if you come from a place of awareness and understanding exactly where you are, and you can look at how you can predict, so particularly on that specific question around super, you can actually, there's tools that you can use to then project what is my super going to be worth in 10, 20 years time. Look at, okay, what is my, annual expenses at the moment? So what is kind of the income that I would need in retirement? You can then project what your current, super is looking like, and then say, okay, well, how is that looking? What do I need to do to improve that? And then you can kind of implement some different strategies for that. So I'm going to give you some tools that will really give you a clear picture of where you are. That's what we're going to get out of today. That's going to be the key thing. Hani and Diana, did you want to share anything about, what was of interest to you in this workshop, or any particular questions that you were interested in talking through today?
No, at this stage, I'm happy to receive whatever you are prepared, and when maybe that may be the area I want to know. And if I need something further, I will ask you.
Lovely, perfect, thanks.
Okay, yeah.
Lovely. That's great. So I do usually like to start with, acknowledging that everyone's relationship, just as I've shared now, your relationship with money is often quite complicated. So not only is, you may not even really understand what your financial situation is, it's your thoughts and feelings, and even the way in which you manage your money can feel really complicated, and that's why the topic of money can be quite stressful and overwhelming for students. But what I want to, I guess my overarching aim at the end of these 3 webinars is to give you a structured and systematic approach, a way of being able to structure your finances and understand, yes, the dollars and cents, but also your mental health and the emotions around it as well, which Honey, I know will be linking in with your work as well, but a really important side to money as well. We've got to acknowledge that those thoughts and feelings and how they drive our behaviour. And also the stress associated with finances. So we can create a structure, which I've got set up in an Excel spreadsheet, which we'll share with all of the students as well. You'll have access to this. This is a worksheet that we will all work through over the next 3 weeks together. So we'll give you sort of a structure, a systematic approach, and I'm hoping that that's going to actually give you a source of strength as opposed to overwhelm, which is often the case when it comes to money. So really moving from the left-hand side of these pictures to the right, where we're feeling quite stressed about not knowing what actions to take. Where am I? Should I be happy? Should I not be happy? To a place where you can actually work on it, even work on it with a partner, talk it through with somebody. So that's really my aim at the end of these three webinars. So here I have them structured so you can be quite clear about what we're going to cover in each. If you miss one, you can't come to one, they are recorded, so you won't miss out. You can always obviously replay them. And I am here, I'll talk to this at the end of the sessions as well, but I am here on a one-to-one basis as well. So if you're working through any of this, you know, personally, you can get in contact with Alison through the help desk and arrange a one-on-one meeting with me, fully confidential, bespoke, where we can talk through something specific to do with your own finances, or it might be, you know, you might have trouble with the actual Excel spreadsheets that we're working through in the workshops. Don't feel like you're alone. I'm here to help and support you. So please reach out if you want any one-on-one support. But today, so the first one is, where are you now? So we're going to look at 3 key financial tools so that they'll help you to understand what your financial position is. So being aware of where you are is going to help you to make really good informed decisions. And it might be about, you know, maybe changing your investments to do with your super. Maybe it's, you know, other investment opportunities. Maybe it's even starting a new business. Maybe it's the small day-to-day decisions like groceries and sticking to a budget. But if we can't make those changes, and we don't want to make changes without fully comprehending and understanding exactly where we are first, and we've got all of that good, rich data from which we can then start to decide, you know, what are we going to do? So today you should be able to hopefully have a good understanding of the tools and the models that I'll show you. And then over the next week, I hope that you'll be able to work through them, do that little bit of homework, and come back next week having a really good understanding, a good structure of knowing where you are financially. So then when we pick up next week, we're going to talk about, where do you want to be? Because with that understanding of where you are, you can then start to look at where you want to be. So it might be for somebody looking at reducing debt. It might be increasing your super savings. It might be saving up for a holiday or a car. So it's going to be very different for everybody, but we'll be able to start deciding what are some of those goals. And for everybody as well, it will be different timeframes. So there may be some people who are looking at, okay, what is it, you know, where do I want to be in 3 months' time, 12 months' time, or maybe 10 years. So we can also see that the models that we look at and learn, we can use them for those different timeframes. And then the third one is, well, how are we going to get there? We're actually going to look at some tools and techniques to help you and assist you. What are my options to actually get to the point that I want to be at? And that's the final third webinar. So the 3 tools that we're looking at, and just to be upfront, this is probably the session that has the most information, and you're going to be exposed potentially, if you don't have a finance background or you don't use Excel a lot, this is the one where you may have emotional blocks that may come up depending on your experience with maths and Excel. So sometimes I find that, you know, you might not like it, you might feel uncomfortable, or you might just feel that you don't know what to do. If you're in that situation, please get in contact with me, and I'm happy to help coach you through how to use all of the tools that we're looking at, because I don't want that to be the barrier. The first one that we're going to look at, firstly, I'll explain what they are, and then I'll actually show you. So we have one file, which Alison will send out to you all, and it contains these 3 financial tools, and you'll be able to work through them yourself over the next week. So the first one is a personal balance sheet. So for anyone who has accounting or business background, they'll know what a balance sheet is. But for others of you, you may as well. Essentially what it does, it allows you to see in one beautiful report what you currently own and what you owe. So that will then give you a net position. So you'll either be able to see that you're in a, either you might be in a debt position, maybe that you're paying off your home and you've got a large proportion of debt there, and you can see that, yes, that's going to probably form part of one of your goals around paying off that debt. Or it might also show you, what the balance of your superannuation is. So you can actually get an idea and you can use that to then set up another goal. But what it really beautifully does is allows us to see in one snapshot, where am I currently financially? What is my situation? For some people, that might be something that you already know. If you're banking with one bank, you might be able to log on to internet banking and it might tell you that. But for most people, we've got a lot of different financial products. So you might have 1 or 2 superannuation accounts. You might have other investments, you'll have accounts. And what the balance sheet does is allows you to bring all of those elements together, see them in the one place, and see what the net effect of them is. It's also a really great tool, obviously, at this sort of starting foundational stage to understand where you are. But it also becomes a really great tool for you to track your progress towards any goal you set for yourself. Because if you track and create a balance sheet at intervals throughout a year, so for example, you might, just using David's example of the superannuation, you may have a superannuation balance today, and you might set a goal that you'd like to achieve to increase it over the next 12 months. You could do a balance sheet for every quarter and have a look at how you're tracking to achieve that goal. Likewise, if you are somebody with a lot of debt, perhaps somebody with consumer debt, credit cards, and that becomes one of your goals, you'll see that today when you do your own personal balance sheet, and then you'll be able to track your progress to reducing that debt over the period of time which you've set for yourself. So it's a really, really powerful tool, which I personally use, and I do exactly that. Every quarter I'll have particular goals and I will set them. What I do want to say before I go on and share the other tools with you is that I've set this up using Excel, and that's a really great way to, share the tools, to teach them. I use this tool myself, but in saying that, it's not the only way that you can do this. And for the purposes of this foundational sort of webinar series, if you can work through the sheets that I've given you, and you'll see the benefit of those. But of course, if you find other tools, there are online tools, even banks often have ways and apps that you can connect all of your accounts together, and you could get a balance sheet that way. And it's really personal. If you like to have it on your phone and have it as an app, I personally don't like having, even though I know there's a whole lot of security software out there, I like to have something that's completely offline, that's not connected to all of my banks and all of my assets. I like to actually enter them in myself. But it's up to you. But I just want to make sure that this isn't the be all and end all, but it's giving you the structure. It's giving you the way. You could even do it by hand if you really didn't like Excel. But it's really that when you see the structure and how each of these 3 tools come together, you'll see that benefit, hopefully. And then how you do it is up to you, but you can certainly use the spreadsheets if they help you. So the personal balance sheet is the first one. The second piece is the emotional audit. So whilst I want us to acknowledge and have a look at our finances and understand, exactly what we own and what we owe, I also want us to then increase our awareness around what is our current relationship with money. So taking the time to complete a couple of questions, which I've prepared, and not only acknowledge, which we'll most likely go to first, we'll critical first and say, oh, I'm not very good at this, or I'm a spender and I'm not very good at saving, and I'm not very good at maths. And often people will talk about the negative emotions that they have around money, but what this tool is also going to get you to do is to try and balance that view with some of the positives as well, maybe some positive experiences that you've had with money as well. To make sure that we're balanced in the way in which we're approaching it. A lot of people will approach their finances with that baggage and that negativity. So I'd like us to also take stock of where we are emotionally with our money, because that too forms a tool from which we can also then devise a change plan if we want one. So if we're feeling like the majority of our thoughts around money are negative, you can then, from that baseline of understanding of your emotional sort of landscape, you can look at implementing some mental health, which again, Honey is much more qualified than me to help with, but you can implement some strategies to help you in that emotional mindset space as well. And together, if you've got the tools to help yourself understand the figures and also your emotions, you're in a pretty powerful position to help yourself increase your sense of financial well-being. So that's kind of the two sort of starting points in those tools. And they kind of, as you can hear, they would sort of really help you to understand where you are right now. You're really clear on the numbers and the emotions. And then the third one is the last piece, which gives us some great information about where your money has been coming and going in the past 12 months. So the first tool tells you exactly how much money you own and you owe, but the last tool helps to show us how you got there. So how much did you earn? Where did that money come from? What jobs did you have? And then where did you spend that money? And this again is incredibly powerful and often information that we don't all have, and it will definitely help inform your decision making and again your change management plan for yourself, because with that information things that you worried about may not be actually true, but then there may be things that you didn't know that for example, you may not know that some of my clients have, which I know some of us do, is a lot of phone apps, for example, and you might download them and they have a small subscription, but you haven't actually added up the cost of all of them. And you don't realize that maybe over a whole year, that's $1,000 of just phone app cost. And then that information allows you to reflect and think, oh, could my money be better spent somewhere else? For some people that they may be really important. I had a client who was a musician, and a lot of those apps were really helpful when they were writing music and spreading and uploading and all that kind of stuff. But for somebody else, maybe they're not appropriate and they're not really, giving you that fulfillment that you're after. So this week is all about, and I'm not going to say it's easy because you're going to get into the details of your finances, really understand what's going on. You might find out some things that you're happy with, others that you feel like you want to change, but that's really how powerful this is going to be. So you can really set some good goals and changes for yourselves. At this point, before I show you the spreadsheets and really get into the nitty-gritty of it, keen to just hear and just see if anyone has any reflections on what I've just said, and if any of it you do already. So is there anybody that does any of this already or feels like they have a good understanding of their personal balance sheet or their trailing 12 months? Any thoughts if anyone would like to share?
So a question, Liz.
Yes.
On financial tool 3, is that strictly a cash flow analysis, or does it also look at sort of movements in the value of your assets and your liabilities as well? Like, for example, if your house value or other assets that you might own. Was it strictly
I love it, and your superannuation is certainly part of that as well. And strictly the trailing 12 months is just a cash flow. So the tool that I've given you is just a cash flow looking at the past 12 months. But what I could suggest is the balance sheet is ideal for watching the valuation changes in your assets and liabilities. So you could actually, and I'll show you when we get to the spreadsheets, I've got the starting month as May, right where we are now. But what you could do if you wanted to is actually do a trailing 12 months of a balance sheet, and you could look back 6 to 12 months and go back to your reports and actually put in what was the value of my super. So it kind of gives you some of that historical information. And particularly for your specific questions, that would be really helpful, because that's going to help you, give you some additional information about how much has my super or my other investments grown. So you get a sense of how much they are growing to where you are now. And then that's going to help you to set some goals for the future as well, knowing how much they have been growing. So yeah, definitely, we can definitely modify that balance sheet to have a trailing sort of 12 months in it as well. It's a great idea. Okay, so and I guess this is just where I just like to pause for a minute too, because I know that I've given you a lot of information in those 3 tools, and for some it's completely new as well, which often can be overwhelming, and I don't want that to be the case, but know that we will work through them together, and you'll see that they're not as complicated or scary as they may seem, because from every client I've had, the value that they've provided has certainly outweighed that initial sense of overwhelm or concern. Some, which, you know, beautiful clients that I've had that are, you know, want to put their head in the sand, like, I don't want to know about my finances. I just rather just, you know, keep it in a dark hole somewhere and just keep doing what I'm doing, which works for only so long, because we know that bubbling sense within us, that concern, that you sort of stick these emotions somewhere, they pop up. If it's in your nightmares, or if it's, you know, activated in some other, triggered in other ways, they're still there. So it's much better to face them, and it's never as bad as it seems. And you'll be able to set, you know, goals and strategies to attend to anything that you're not happy with. So the reason why we're looking at these 3 tools and we're doing this today is by understanding our financial position, we can bring more calm and confidence to our relationship with money, and make informed decisions, and seek help if we need it. So that is really where I'm coming from. The key message for this week is really knowing that although I may be making you feel uncomfortable in understanding where you are financially, it's with that awareness. As we know, awareness precedes change. So if there are things that you feel like you need to change or want to improve, we must have that awareness first of what is actually going on. And again, I'm here to support you in that if you are finding it, and for anyone listening back to it as well, if it is triggering anything for you, please get in contact. So to give a little bit more, I guess, visual sense of what I'm talking about, and, you know, if I said the word balance sheet, you know, what does that actually mean? What does it look like? And here I'm showing you as a screenshot at a high level what it looks like, and then I'll actually take you into the spreadsheets as well. So this is our first tool, and you can work through them sequentially, so from 1 to 3 over the next week. So the first one is the balance sheet. So it's having a place to structure and bring awareness to your financial position will help you to feel more calm. Even if it's the reality of what you see concerns you, knowing that you can then take action from that place of awareness will help. And Hanny, again, I know I'm connecting in with you into the mental health space here, but is that something, I don't know, that you've come across before, obviously in a different context, but but having that awareness of where you are in completeness of your situation is much more useful, you know, implementing changes from that place of awareness than just being influenced. A lot of people are just influenced in their financial lives by their, you know, friends, family, the media, and they'll take action based on what somebody else thinks is a good idea. But it's much better to understand where you are, what your situation is, what you want to get out of, you know, your financial life. What is it that you want to get out of life? What is it that you need? You have to ask yourself some of these bigger questions when it comes to money. It sort of touches every part of our life. So yeah, so I asked a question, Honey, but I think I answered it. I don't know if you wanted to share anything there. No, all good?
Yeah, all good. And there
Yeah.
is no, you are going in the right track, and I don't have, I agree with what you're saying. You have to know, and it's your journey, not someone else's journey. That's
Lovely.
good.
That's the key message that I want to make sure everyone takes away as well, because you can often, I guess it's with like lots of things in life, that you can always look to other people and think, oh, they've got the answer, or how has that worked out for them? But we really don't know all of the, you know, individual details of somebody's life that's preceded, you know, this point where they are. And again, you've got to acknowledge that yourself as well, and not look back with regret and say, well, I should have done this or I shouldn't have done that. You are where you are. You are where you are. And this week is going to help you see, you know, you are where you are. And now, and then from that, and just give yourself time to just acknowledge and feel that without jumping straight into action. Let's just know where you are, and then look at where you want to go. And we'll look at the different strategies for that. Yeah. So this is what I mean in terms of a personal balance sheet. And I try to use mixed language with finances, because I know it triggers different things for people. So I talk about the balance sheet as being my financial resources, saying, okay, what are the financial resources that I currently have? So here it's what I own is the first section. And I've just done a mock-up here. So these figures won't relate to anybody, but you can imagine, and obviously you would put in your own, you know, you may have the things that you own. It may be a house, and then you would have the corresponding amount that's the mortgage in the O section. You might have, you've got your superannuation, your emergency or just in case fund. You may have individual shares. You may have investment properties. You may have a business. So I know, again, the students that we're connecting with have such a variety of things in their lives, but here it's just one place to be able to see it all together beautifully there, what I own and then what I owe. And as David was sharing too, that so this example I have here is just for October, just for a random month, but you could definitely look back and have a look at what that balance sheet looked like over the past 12 months. But what you'll see is how powerful and helpful this can be looking forward to, because you can set some goals. So it may be that, so for example, here we have somebody who has a credit card. If we go down to the O section, so they've got a credit card owing of $480. Once this person, you know, takes stock of where they are, that might inform one of their goals over the next 12 months. They may sit down and say, right, I want to get rid of that credit card balance, and my goal by December is to have that balance at 0. So you can then do a balance sheet every month to keep track and make sure that you're moving in the direction of achieving that goal. So it's just an example there. So that's the balance sheet. The emotion audit looks a bit like this. So it's a series of questions which I've developed using a number of different tools to help you to, again, have a systematic, structured approach to acknowledging some of your emotions around money. What are some of the habits and beliefs you have? And then at the bottom, what are some of your skills and experiences that you have that perhaps don't directly relate to money, but are still really helpful. So if you're, you know, as I've got here, you know, the creativity and problem solving, those skills are brilliant, obviously, for when you're managing your money and making decisions. And, you know, being disciplined. So it's really about ensuring that, because what we find in the research is that people's financial lives are really coloured with a very dark shade of grey. Most people carry a lot of burden, a lot of negativity, and what I'd like to try and help you to do is to shift some of that to a more balanced view, where we're also acknowledging the positive things that we've done. So here we're looking at what are the emotions you most commonly feel, and this is taking this audit as of in the next week. And this is something, again, that you can do in 12 months' time and note the differences. So maybe at the moment you're frustrated, you get carried away with spending, you feel a bit reckless. Can you talk to somebody? Often it's maybe a mum or a friend, but maybe it's no one. And that may become something that you want to change. You want to find somebody that you can talk to about it. How would you like to feel? you know, calm, confident, stable. So it's giving some structure to some of these emotions that we often just have spinning around our head and are triggered at all sorts of times in our life. Some of our beliefs and habits too. So here picking sort of 5 words that would describe your attitude and belief towards money. And sometimes I know this isn't straightforward, but it may be again, you may have some positive things. You know, often a lot of us hold for a lot of reasons. We're brought up really conditioned to think money can be the root of all evil. You know, just look to Disney movies and the bad character who was the rich, greedy so-and-so. So we have to fight some of these beliefs sometimes as well and say, hey, okay, that's a character, but also look to other people who do have money and are using it and managing it in a really positive way and are really good stewards of that money. Because often some of these habits and beliefs are driving behaviours, the things that we do with our money that may not be getting us towards the outcomes that we want. So it's really important that we have a look at some of those as well and look and understand. Perhaps it's you know, how you saw money managed as a child in your family. We know that all of those experiences really impact a lot of what we carry through to adulthood. And, you know, giving yourself an opportunity to look at some of those and challenge those, so you're not subconsciously making decisions and sabotaging yourself in your financial life, you know, when you can actually work on some of those. So yeah, really important too. And this again is it's just an option of how you can look through this, but journaling, talking to someone, if it's a counselling, you know, service that can be helpful. All I want to make sure is that whilst we look at the figures, we're also taking an opportunity to make a space to think through the emotional side of our financial life as well, because that's what's driving some of the behaviours that we want to change. And also thinking about, you know, some of the things that you're proud of. Like, people will very unlikely to say, I'm really proud of myself, you know, when I did this with money, I was really happy about that. We'll look to the negatives. You know, it's like Velcro to the negative thoughts and Teflon to the positives. They slide off and they're gone and you don't think about them again. We have to try and override some of that in our mind and our thinking. So this is my suggestion on where you can sort of capture some of that, but of course you can do it in all sorts of different ways. And again, there's different apps that can help you with sort of journaling and emotions and habit exploration as well. But this is just a good sort of starting point. And often I find the simplest things are the most effective. So not to get carried away trying to find the best tool, hence why I just used a very simple tool to sort of give us a structure and a place that we can put, you know, some of these thoughts around our financial life. So that's the emotional audit. And then our trailing 12 months gives us some really, really helpful information as well. So this is the third sort of tab in the Excel spreadsheet. So by having a thorough understanding of our income and expenses, it helps us to make good, well-informed money decisions for the future. And it also gives us such rich information about what are we actually doing with our money. And it gives us that opportunity to pause and reflect and say, is this how we want to manage it? Is this where we want our money to go? Is that, you know, could I reduce money here to then channel money towards, you know, maybe it is towards super and for those long-term goals, or maybe it's I'm going to reduce money, you know, and often it's in your discretionary things like eating out or groceries, but just a small change a week in one area channeled towards something else that really aligns with your values and what you want out of life, like a holiday or an experience, or perhaps it's more study, whatever it may be for you. This really gives you that rich information to make some of those decisions. So again, I don't want to scare people with all of the figures, but just to explain what we're seeing here is we've got sort of 2 key columns really. The first one is the inflows. So we're looking at over the past 12 months, what was the money that was flowing in? So in this example here, I've got somebody who's an Australian student studying full-time, so they may have Centrelink payments, they may have a part-time job, so not a whole lot of income at that stage, because they're at this point in time, they're focusing all of their energy on studying, and that's really important, and that's what they've decided to do. But on the other side, We can see that they've got a lot of outgoings, so their outflows, what have been all of their expenses. And we can see from that, just looking at those two totals at the bottom there, and obviously the net impact of it, they're spending about $13,000 more than they're earning. Now, on face value, without knowing the person or the situation, we could say, well, that's not a good situation. You're spending too much. You should always make sure that you spend less than you earn. But at different times in our life, there are going to be different things happening and different priorities. It may be that this person actually has prepared for this period of time where they've saved up enough money and they're drawing down on those savings. And that's perfectly okay. But maybe this is a challenge for them and they want to now equalize. And that's where I've worked through with a number of students looking at what are your options of, you've really got two levers. What are your options around increasing your income or reducing your expenses just to get through this period of study? And then after that, you'll be able to move into a higher paying job, etc. So just these are some of the things that you can do with this information. So what I'd like to do now is just share with you the Excel spreadsheet that we will send out. Just make sure that you can see. Can you see the Excel spreadsheet with the little money box pig on it? Everyone see that okay?
We saw that. Now it is a...
We're just seeing your file list, but you you were showing it before.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just see. Let me stop the share. Maybe because I've just moved it to the different screen because I couldn't look at it. Let me just have a look. And is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the full screen. Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So we'll send this sheet out to you and everyone who's registered. And obviously, if you're listening back and you haven't got it, please get in contact with Alison or the help desk and we can make sure you get it. But again, as I said, this is a really on purpose, simple, structured, one file that deals with everything that we'll work through in this workshop. If it works for you, great, and I hope that it does, in terms of somewhere that you can come and you can keep using it, making it your own and adjusting it. But if it doesn't, I would ask if you can still work through the tools and use them for this period of 3 weeks to see the value of the tools. And then you might find where you do them somewhere different, but at least you'll see and understand how to use the tool, if that makes sense. So if Excel isn't your best friend, that's okay, like it is for me. But at least to use the spreadsheets to get an understanding of how the tool works. You can make, as I said, you can do a balance sheet through internet banking for some places, or there are definitely Pocketsmith and lots of different apps which you need to pay for, but they can do essentially this. But so you can see it in real life as opposed to the screenshots, I'll just take you through it quickly. So again, here you can see those figures similar to what I had on the slides. So you'll be entering in, so we're in the month of May. But David, if you wanted to add in, either you could insert columns, or you could maybe make this May, and then you could go back months as well. So you could go back to January, and then you could go back to, say, June the previous year. And then you could add in doing that bit of that trailing if you wanted to have that additional information to help inform what some of your goals and actions might be. That's perfectly okay. But what I regularly do is I would do and again, it depends on the goals that you set for yourself and your particular situation. If I can give you an example, so if I have sometimes clients who do have one of their challenges that they're really wanting to work on is spending habits, and they're finding that they just are reckless, a little bit reckless with spending, and they just can't keep on top of it. I would be doing this quite frequently to really give yourself that feedback. And if you set yourself a goal, you get that information and feedback so you can keep on track and motivated. But once you get to a point where you're kind of in a good rhythm with your money, you've set yourself a sort of a spending budget and you're sticking to it, doing this ongoing quarterly is probably really good financial hygiene, just to keep, on track. And it's something that I would do. So each quarter, so if you're starting in May, and then the next quarter, you would do exactly the same thing. And as I said, it becomes a really good tool to give you that information about how you're going. And what I've done is created a bit of a graph based on the data that was there. So I kind of just did a mock-up scenario, created some goals for December. And you can see here the graphical representation of that. So what the net impact is. So if this is where you are, 42,000 in debt, and you're wanting to reduce that and get to 31, when you fill out the months in between, you'll start to then see graphically, am I on track? And those visuals can be really helpful to support and keep motivating you to achieve your goals. And as we'll talk about in the future weeks, I'm kind of jumping ahead here because all I really want you to do in the next week is just fill out, where am I now for this particular month in time? And we'll then start to set goals. But you can see already how the tool can be used to both help you understand where you are at any given point in time, but also to set and track your progress towards goals as well. And here is the money emotions audit. So again, and if you feel, modify this in any way that suits you. If you also like to write it out by hand, this one in particular, when you're using the different side of your brain, having it structured in Excel, for some clients, it can be helpful to have, maybe a journal that you use as well, that you can pop just little thoughts and maybe it's emotions or maybe it's questions. Those things that sort of buzz around your head, should I be looking at this kind of investment? Or, how is my super tracking? Or sometimes it's good to have somewhere that you can place all of that physically, so it stops it from just, running around your head, particularly at nighttime. If you wake up, one of the people who wake up in the night and you're worried about something, or am I going to afford this? Or have I spent too much? Or you might have seen an ad about electricity, for example, or you've heard about the HEX debt increase, which we will talk more about in our June webinar. All those little things that can also undermine our sense of well-being and calm around finances can be really helpful to have somewhere to put them. So a little journal can be quite helpful for that, or on your phone in the notes, whatever it might be. And just a little bit of a strategy around that as well. Again, we're kind of moving into the actions that you take. But if you do find yourself being somebody who does worry a lot, having somewhere to write down those worries and then deciding a particular time and day for which you'll attend to them each week can be really helpful. So again, it brings structure to those thoughts and also the actions that you're going to take. So you can say, right, okay, great, thanks, mind, for bringing that to my attention. That's made me a little bit concerned about, am I paying too much in my electricity or my health insurance, whatever it might be. And then you can say to yourself, okay, I know that on Mondays at lunchtime at 12 o'clock, I sit down and I look at that book and I work out, what am I going to do? Are these concerns, legitimate? Do I need to take action over them? So it gives you that as opposed to them just swirling around all of the time, which can be quite a drain mentally and physically. And then when we get to, excuse my error there. How's my money flowed over the past 12 months? So this is your trailing 12 months. So again, here we can see, so we've got this first column is all about the money coming in, and you can change the frequency. So if you're paid monthly or weekly, you can adjust those, you can insert new lines. And I know it's a little bit fiddly, but once you get it set up, and it's actually through fiddling around with it, you actually gain a lot in terms of understanding what are all of my expenses, what is my income, how much are they, and just in terms of working it all out. Although this is probably the one sometimes students get a little bit stuck in because there is a little bit of modification that's required. So again, please get in contact if you need any help with it. It's not hard to do it all, and I'm really happy to help with this. So yes, you can modify it, change all of the headings, change the frequencies, the values, And you'll see that what we're really looking at is trying to work out what the yearly totals are. That's what we're getting to. So we can see at that year 12-month total, what is the overall impact? Have I spent more than I've made, or have I made more than I've spent? And that's, you know, the first high level bit of information that you want to know, because then you'll be able to say, right, is that in alignment to what I'm thinking in my stage and my phase of life? Am I comfortable with that? And then you can start to, I would say, you start at the bottom and then you start to work backwards. So you'll then look at, okay, what was my greatest expense? Is there anything that I can do to change that? So we're moving again. Sorry, I get excited. We're jumping into next week as well about where do I want to go. So just to reel it all back in again, this week, all you're trying to, your aim is to complete these 3 first tabs with information. And I know it will take a little bit of time. It'll be a matter of logging onto internet banking to get your balance sheet information, know what the balance is of your accounts, of your super, download the CSV file, copy and paste them in if you've got shares, whatever it might be, getting an approximation of maybe a property value, what the corresponding loan is. So that can take a little bit of time. And again, with the money flow, if you've got one bank account, it'll be much easier, but a lot of us don't. So it will be just a process of downloading the past 12 months worth of transactions from internet banking. And I know that's not a fun job for anyone unless you're an accountant like me, which quite enjoys doing that kind of thing. So I know that can be not the funnest, but the value of the information that you will get from it is really worth it. I can't emphasize that enough. You're really going to be able to understand exactly where your money has gone and then start. And you're not going to have to do that all the time. I'm not going to get you to, you know, to that granular detail, download your transactions and track them at that really low level, but to do it once, to at least know. And if you can do it once a year, it can be quite helpful as a check-in. But once you've set some boundaries for yourself around your spending, then you just stick to those. You don't have to do all of that again. So that can be really, really helpful. So I hope that is there any questions about any of those spreadsheets, how they work? Does everyone feel confident that you'll be able to use them? Does that seem?
Liz, a quick question. If you have joint finances, say with a partner or husband or wife, obviously there's sort of joint financial responsibility, you know, going forward, you know, like especially in terms of retirement savings and things like that. Do you expect that, or is it useful to compile a joint financial position? Like, for example,
Yes.
like many home loans are in joint names, you know,
Names. Yep,
joint bank
absolutely.
accounts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So my overarching guidance would be that if you are married or if you're not, but you have a joint ownership of assets and you have a vision of being together and achieving financial outcomes together, this should be done together. It may not be that you sit next to each other as you do it. My husband doesn't do it with me, but you would put it all together, and it helps you to both be informed about those spending boundaries, saving boundaries, and setting those goals. So what's helpful is if you can, yes, get all of the information together. So it may be making sure you've got the details and all the account details, and you would name them to know whose is whose, and include all of the different corresponding expenses and incomes. Because that gives you really rich data together to make informed decisions. And you'll be able to look at it together and say, right, this is a snapshot of where we are. This is a snapshot of where our money is coming in and where's it gone to. What do you think? You know, what do you see in that? Are there things that you want to change? And it can really, it's a really great centering, anchoring point to open some of those money conversations, which aren't always easy in relationships. But if you've got data, which is just information, and you both come at it, you know, in a respectful, supportive way that's not pointing at, oh, you know, why did you spend that much, or why did you spend this much? This is how we've spent our money earned our money over the past 12 months. What do we want to do in the next 12 months? Are we happy for it to keep going like this? Or are there things, what would you like to achieve? What's really important to you? So really, it's a really good prompting for those conversations. So yeah, I definitely combine it together.
Okay. And one last quick question. I wouldn't want to unfairly take advantage of the service you're providing, and I wouldn't expect you to endorse any particular, financial methods or providers or whatever. But are we able to contact you just to pick your brain about like very high level type
That's exactly
advice?
what I'm here for. Yeah. So I'm not a financial planner, so that's why I make really clear I'm not connected with any products. But from the experiences and the studies and skills, I can certainly, yes, if you have different ideas, we can look at, even if it's comparing different investment products and you're not quite sure of, even if it's, because they're all so different and they slice and dice to make it confusing, I'm really happy to help you work through comparing them. What would that mean for you? And just being a bit of a sounding board too. Yeah, absolutely helpful, and happy to do that. I also do it in a business sense too. I've got lots of students who are running little small businesses or starting businesses from their studies, and they're wanting to sort of get the groundwork of those going as well. And I teach entrepreneurship and planning business finances and all of those kind of subjects too. So really happy to do that. And it can even be somebody who's looking at, I know just comparing electricity bills can be really confusing for people. So more than happy to be someone that can help just work through getting the information right so you can make the decision. That's really the key thing. I'm really happy to help structure any of that. So yeah, no problem at all. That's what I'm here for. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Lovely. So the best thing, and I guess that kind of brings us to, I'll go back into my slides. It's kind of bringing us to the end, looking at the time as well. So next week we're looking at where do we want to be. So if we've finished and worked through those spreadsheets by this time next week, ideally, you'll have a really clear understanding of where you are. You've taken stock. It may not be that you're completely clear about how you feel about it or what you think that you need to change, but there will be some things that you will quickly know that you want to change. And that's where we can start to set some goals. But all of this, our whole financial life, like our life, is just evolving. So it's not that you set goals in stone and they have to stay that way and you have to achieve them. Things will, life will twist and turn. But what I'm hoping is that with these tools, you've got an anchor point or a structure that you can come back to. And when you're making a big decision or something's changed, you can come back to using them and say, right, where are we? Okay, and now what's changed? And then you can set a new goal or change it slightly, if that makes sense. So that's what we're going to have a think and talk about next week, is where do you want to be? And then this is the information about the financial coaching sessions. So yeah, happy for you to contact. We've got the helpline at SCPA to book a time with me. And I'm usually quite flexible if it's evenings or daytimes, and working around the time changes as well. So anything as, from budgeting or working through debt management, and really it's that drawing upon my business analysis skills too, is just helping you structure some of, a particular financial goal that you might have, or you've got different products that you're trying to compare. But yeah, absolutely not a financial planner, but sometimes it's really helpful just to have somebody to talk through something. And a lot of you already have a lot of the solutions and answers, but having someone to talk through and soundboard and or have you thought about this? Students are finding really, really helpful. So yeah, more than happy to provide that to anybody who needs it. So I hope that's been helpful and a good start to this series and has met your expectations and your motivations to get up so early. But please, if there is anything particular that you would like us to focus on in the future, so we're running this 3-part series obviously for the next 3 weeks. In June, we usually run once a month a particular topic, financial topic, and June is tax time. So I'll be bringing, some tips that are really relevant for students and things to think about as well when you're getting ready for doing your tax. So that will be in June. But if there's any particular topics that you would like me to talk about or to do some research on and bring to you, please let Alison know, and we can certainly do different topics in the future as well. So thank you everybody for coming along.
Thanks, Liz.
And no
Thank
worries.
you.
And I hope everyone
Thanks,
can
Liz.
come along next week. And
Thank you,
please,
Liz.
if you've got questions as well, even if it's just via email, get in contact with Alison and she can forward on my details. And if it's just a simple question of not quite knowing how to do something, please do not hesitate to email me as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks,
Right,
Alison.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we've got a little bit of homework to do before we come and meet you again next Wednesday
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Liz, you'll send me those Excel worksheets.
Yes,
I'll send them out
I
to
will.
everybody.
Lovely, yes. And don't feel under pressure by the homework either. I don't want, if you come next week and you haven't done it, of course, it's okay. But sometimes having that time frame can motivate you, and putting in that bit of extra work this week will make all the difference for the future weeks as well. So yeah, lovely. So yeah, you'll receive them shortly.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
See you next week.